What's going on, everyone? It's the Fantasy Football Almanac, back at it with another fantasy football video. Today we are going to be discussing buy low wide receivers you can get essentially for free or at a massive discount in your leagues. Before we get into it though, if you guys could, please go down, leave a like, leave a comment, any comment. I am answering trade related questions, start sits, anything. Every single comment I will answer, so if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on so you don't miss another video. With that out of the way, let's hop into our first receiver. Alright, so the first player I want to talk about is DJ Moore, and DJ Moore is a guy who's in a massive slump right now, putting up 12 total targets on 6 receptions, only having 43 yards in both games and 1 touchdown, so he is off to a pretty slow start. And yes, you may be a little bit worried about Baker, but Baker is actually the best quarterback DJ Moore has had in his entire career, and I know that is very sad to say, but it is true. With quarterbacks like Sam Darnold, with quarterbacks like PJ Walker, Kyle Allen, washed Cam Newton, Baker Mayfield is the best of these guys, and I know it's terrible to say, but it is true. And DJ Moore, with these guys, with Sam Darnold, with Kyle Allen, with all these other players, has balled. He has been a pretty good fantasy option, despite these quarterbacks not getting him to the end zone much. Since 2019, DJ Moore is the 6th most targeted wide receiver in the entire NFL, and he's sharing some good company. The company ahead of him is Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Deontay Johnson. That is it. Everyone else is behind him since 2019, so this guy clearly can command a very large target volume. Well, yes, Baker hasn't really found a connection, a rhythm with him yet. I guarantee you it will happen because DJ Moore is too talented of a player for it not to happen. Also, we saw back-to-back 1,100-yard seasons from DJ Moore, getting 163 targets, 118 targets, and another 135 targets. The only reason why he wasn't drafted and valued like a fantasy superstar is touchdowns. And can we say that DJ Moore's touchdown luck has been his fault? And my answer is no. When you play with Sam Darnold, who had 9 touchdowns last year, 9 touchdowns the year before that. I mean, last year, the Panthers had 14 total offensive passing touchdowns. He was the beneficiary of 4 of them. That is a pretty decent ratio. Well, it's not great. I mean, it's the Panthers. You're getting 14 touchdowns. What do you expect from DJ Moore? You can't really get anything better. Then the year before that, he gets 16 touchdowns total, spread between them. And the year before that, in 2019, he only has 17 total touchdowns in the passing game to operate with. And you have Christian McCaffrey that season, vulturing 5 of them at least. So I really think it's unfair to hold that against DJ Moore. Well, yes, it does feel a little gross taking DJ Moore. I think a lot of people are trying to sell DJ Moore, and rightfully so. I don't necessarily blame them. I think he is a buy low of all buy lows if you believe in the talent, and I 100% do. We've seen it year in and year out. We've seen him put up 1,100-yard seasons, almost a 1,200-yard season, and you can probably get him pretty cheap. 50% off, honestly. I mean, there's tons of trades I think you can go out there. You could most likely trade a guy like James Robinson. You could probably trade Jeff Wilson. There are so many different players you could trade for DJ Moore, and I would make those trades in a heartbeat. Anyways, that is it for my first player. Now let's move on to another guy that I think is supremely undervalued right now, and a guy who has actually had tons of fantasy success, and that is Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is another player that I think is really undervalued right now. Let me tell you why. First and foremost, he's been labeled as injury prone, when that throughout his career is simply not the case. In his first 2 seasons, he played every single game, and then in his 3rd season, he misses 2 games, not really that bad, and then in his 4th season, he misses 4 games. So he's missed 6 total games in 4 seasons. Then last year he missed another 3 games. 9 games in 5 total seasons. I don't know about you, but that is not injury prone to me. Then yes, he comes back and does re-aggravate a little something. But, I mean, this is a guy coming off a torn ACL. Yes, that is a little bit worrying, but at the same time, you can get Chris Godwin for super cheap. And if he comes back and is even close to the same as the player he was back in the day, back in 2019, in 2020, then he's somebody you don't have to worry about at all. Even if he comes back at 75% of himself, you don't have to worry at all. Plus, there is lots of more targets to go around. Julio Jones constantly dealing with injuries here. We have Mike Evans suspended for a game. And then after that, who is it? I mean, you're not worried about Cameron Brate snapping any targets. You're not worried about Rob Gronkowski anymore. There's really nobody else to worry about. It's Mike Evans, and that's it. Julio Jones is 33, going on 34 years old. I don't think you have to worry about him taking that many targets. And once Chris Godwin comes back, you are not getting him at a discount like this ever again. Well, yes, he may hurt your team in the short term. In the long term, during those playoff weeks, which is what we care about, Chris Godwin is going to be an absolute steal as long as he can remain healthy, which he has proven that he can do in years past. The only problem is he's been dealing with quite a few injuries the past 2 or 3 years, which has made people a little scared of him. But I don't think you really should be. I think Chris Godwin's going to be a phenomenal player. And also, we've seen it before from him. He was the wide receiver 2 in both standard and PPR scoring in 2019 with Jameis Winston. Now he is the greatest quarterback of all time throwing to him. I think it's absolutely an upgrade. This is the same guy who was also the wide receiver 16 last year, despite only playing 14 games. If he had played all 17 games throughout the season, he would have finished as the wide receiver 8, tied with Deontay Johnson. And this is a guy you can get for essentially free. People are done. People are fed up. If there's someone in your league who's 0-2 through their first 2 games, and they have Chris Godwin, they're probably pretty fed up. Even if they are 1-1, they're probably pretty mad that Chris Godwin's just sitting on their bench doing nothing. So go out and target Chris Godwin, offer some pretty cheap 2-for-1 trades with some garbage depth pieces, see what you can get, feel out the Chris Godwin owner. I think he will definitely be at least receptive to trading Chris Godwin. But anyways, that's it for Chris Godwin. The next player I want to talk about is a guy who is going in the second, sometimes third round of sleeper drafts, early in the second, sometimes in the first in best ball drafts. And right now, it feels like the verdict is completely out on Ceedee Lamb. I feel like everyone is super terrified to invest in Ceedee Lamb, and for good reason. I'll lay out some of the negatives first. For one, he's got Cooper Rush throwing to him. I don't think anyone is really confident in Cooper Rush supporting him on a week-to-week basis. Yes, he will have boom weeks, but at the same time, I don't think those boom weeks are going to be coming every single week for Ceedee Lamb. And he doesn't have Dak for another 2 months. Second of all, he looked pretty bad in his first game, only catching 2 of 11 targets. But the thing we're looking for here is volume. He got 11 targets in his first week, gets 11 targets again in his second week. Well, yes, you are going to have to deal with Cooper Rush for a pretty sizable amount of time. It does stink. Once Dak is back, Dak is going to be much better than Cooper Rush, and we know for a fact Dak is going to be coming back sometime this season, sometime around November. He is out 2 months with a broken hand, but now it's more like a month and a half. So, well, yes, Ceedee Lamb is in a bad position now. When we are preparing for playoffs, when we are preparing for those boom weeks in the last couple weeks, Ceedee Lamb is one of those players that can do it. And right now, I've seen people say they would rather have Curtis Samuel over Ceedee Lamb. And, well, yes, Curtis Samuel has looked really, really good to start the season. It's still Ceedee Lamb at the end of the day. This guy was still a top 15 pick, a first-round pick in the NFL draft, only going into his third year, which is a prime age for breakouts. And I think the reason we forget that is because of guys like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson coming in and absolutely dominating. Ceedee Lamb still has had a pretty good career up until this point, having 1,100 yards last season. Yes, we haven't seen that elite level ceiling from him just yet, but I think once we get Dak back in this offense, we can definitely see Ceedee Lamb improve. And again, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that last week. We're looking for those playoff weeks. We're looking for the booms then. Ceedee Lamb can provide that. Also, we see the team move on from Amari Cooper. Yes, the contract was bad, but we see this team move on from Amari Cooper, putting their full amount of faith into Ceedee Lamb. And I trust Jerry Jones more than I trust myself. Yes, I'm a Giants fan. It hurts me to say that. But these NFL GMs, these NFL managers, they know more than we do. They put their full faith in Ceedee Lamb. And Michael Gallup, I have faith that that is going to be the case going forward. I do like Ceedee Lamb. I would go buy him low. I would go send a 2-for-1 offer for Ceedee Lamb if you have the requisite depth. And maybe, who knows, maybe you can get a fleece. Maybe you can ship Curtis Samuel and another player for Ceedee Lamb. And, well, yes, it might not feel good for the next couple weeks. In the long term, it will be great, and that's what matters. The next 2 guys I want to talk about are both in a similar boat to Chris Godwin. The first guy I want to talk about is Allen Lazard. And, well, yes, Allen Lazard does feel like a somewhat disgusting name to pick up. The pros for Allen Lazard are pretty obvious. For one, he's got a top 5 quarterback of all time throwing to him. And this top 5 quarterback is no ordinary top 5 quarterback. This is Aaron Rodgers, a guy who needs trust in his players. And how do you develop trust? You develop trust over a period of time, over 3 or 4 years, throwing to the guy, building chemistry, learning routes, learning when, how to throw to that player. And the only player that has been on this roster that is a wide receiver for more than a year is Allen Lazard. We also have Robert Tonyan, but let's ignore him for the sake of this argument. He is the tight end. But the only player that fits that bill is Allen Lazard. Furthermore, Allen Lazard is a big-bodied 6'5" receiver. This is a guy who's going to be utilized a ton in the end zone. And we saw that last year where through his last 5 games, he was averaging a touchdown a game with Davante Adams. Now without Davante Adams, this offense gets a lot more freed up targets because, let's face it, Davante Adams was an absolute target monster, gobbling up 31% of the team's target share on average. Aaron Rodgers absolutely loved this guy, and while I don't expect Allen Lazard to fit that Davante Adams level bill, if we can see Allen Lazard get 20% of the target share, which we have seen historically with Aaron Rodgers supporting wide receiver ones at above a 20% target share, so I'm being very conservative and saying a 20% target share. If he supports Allen Lazard with that, you are getting absolutely massive production for a guy you can get for essentially free. I mean, week 1 coming off of the ankle, week 2 only getting 3 targets, coming off that ankle yet again. It was very unsure if he was going to play. Now I think he's primed for a pretty big role, along with these other guys like Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. I would prefer Allen Lazard. My order for it would be Allen Lazard, then Romeo Doubs, then Christian Watson in terms of preference for who I'd want on my team. But I would go talk to the Allen Lazard owner, somebody who's probably pretty frustrated that Allen Lazard hasn't played at all, really unstartable in week 2 because of 3 targets. Yes, a touchdown may have salvaged his day, but the person's probably thinking that it's not something that happens very frequently. So I would go trade for Allen Lazard. I think you can get him for a very cheap, almost borderline free. He was going in the 8th, 7th round of most drafts. You could probably trade a 12th rounder, the type of guy for him. I think he's absolutely undervalued where he's going right now. But now let's move on to our last guy, another guy who is coming off an injury, and that's Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup is a guy I would absolutely go and target right now if you can, if he's in your league. People are just waiting for him to come back. He's been sitting on IR. Nobody really recognizes that, this guy is going to be good when he comes back. But no, he is going to be good when he comes back. The Cowboys signed him to a 5-year, $62 million deal, and they let Amari Cooper walk. Clearly, they trust Gallup as the number 2. And this is a player who has done it before, where in 2019, he was the wide receiver 22 in PPR scoring, 19 in standard scoring, getting 113 targets for 66 receptions and 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's not a player you come around often, going for essentially free. I mean, you could trade for him for very little. Then in the next year, he plays a full 16 games. Yes, this is when Ceedee comes in and Amari Cooper, so it is a very crowded offense. He only gets 105 receptions, only 800 yards. Was a little bit worse, but now, after his ACL, he's coming back, and nobody remembers what he has done in years past, and he's in the best position to succeed that he's probably been in his whole career. I am absolutely fine trading for Michael Gallup. He is questionable this week. He has logged a full practice. I saw a report. Jerry Jones basically said if it were the Super Bowl, Michael Gallup would be playing right now. They just want to be extra cautious with him, which, I mean, that is a little crazy to me. I think that's too much. That's GM speak. That's coach speak. But at the same time, if he's saying he would be ready for the Super Bowl, then I think Michael Gallup is probably pretty close to ready. Well, yes, he may not come back 100%. There still is going to be opportunity to buy low because coming off a torn ACL, everything like that, he will not be coming back 100% right away. But I think he's absolutely worth it where he's going right now, and he has shown that he can do it in the NFL before, and nothing's changed aside from torn ACL. But anyways, guys, that is going to be it for my buy low wide receivers. I really hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys are looking to trade for any of these guys down below in the comments, please let me know. I would be interested to hear the trade, and I will talk about it in a future video if the trade does get done. I want to hear around what these guys are going for in real leagues, in leagues that you guys are all participating in, and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world to me. Drop that like as well. Turn the notification bell on. But again, that's going to be it for me. As always, have a good day, a good night, and a good life.